I'm sure you have heard about the huge legal clash that took place with Epic Games on one side and Apple and Google on the other. Yeah, essentially this all started a few years ago, and basically Epic Games accused Apple and Google for having kind of a monopoly on purchases that are made through their platform. They basically argue that when people will purchase things through a game like microtransactions, but they will be on a Google or Apple platform, then they have to pay basically higher prices. Or if the prices are the same, then the company, like Epic Games for Fortnite, they will have to eat a bit more of a cost because they have to pay a fee for being on their platform. So Epic said, nope, that's not fair, and they sued, and they were relatively successful. They've basically won that lawsuit, and actually there was a very big development about a week ago where Apple was actually found in contempt of court for failing to abide by what was agreed upon when this lawsuit concluded, which was obviously a very big W for Epic. And it looks like as a result they are back on the Apple App Store. Everything is really looking good for them in that regard. Well, pretty recently, right after this all happened where Apple was found in contempt, Tim Sweeney, who is the Epic Games CEO, he had a group media call, and this was kind of, I guess, like his victory lap. I mean, he was just kind of maybe bragging about it or something. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, he's got good reason to be happy. So this was last Wednesday, April 30th. This was Stephen Totolo from GameFile. He attended this, and he says that Tim Sweeney spent some of the time in this call reiterating his dismay over Apple and Android's App Store restrictions. But here's the thing, Stephen brings up a very good point, something that I and probably many have not ever thought about with this whole thing, with Epic suing Google and Apple over like their mobile store restrictions, and that is that why have they not sued like Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo for what I can assume to be relatively the same restrictions? After all, Fortnite is on all three of those consoles. I'd imagine with that comes some heavy fees that are, burdensome. So Steven said that he asked Tim Sweeney why Epic Games does not have the same gripes with the three main console makers, and he responded by saying that he would actually like to open things up more on consoles, and he said, quote, "I think the world would be a better place if consoles allowed for competing stores, but we have not ever seen that as an antitrust dispute-worthy issue." So two main things to unpack just from that statement. One, he definitely wants the Epic Games Store on all three consoles, but the other half of it is that he does not think that a lawsuit is worth it, just like with Apple and Google. It is, of course, up to anybody's guess whether this is because the console situation is just way different and not as significant as the mobile store situation, or if it's because maybe they have been through a lot with this mobile store situation and now they're realizing that it's just not worth taking on the same exact situation. Because as it turns out, when you look into it, so this is an article from Game Rant last year where they talk about how much Epic Games had to spend just in the legal fees for these two big lawsuits. Apparently Tim Sweeney did say that they actually had to spend hundreds of millions of US dollars just on these two lawsuits. But additionally, the very fact that Fortnite for a time was not on the Apple App Store because of this lawsuit, Epic also estimates that from that they lost $1 billion in revenue. So yeah, maybe it is that Tim Sweeney sees that this could be, a similar problem, and he just doesn't think that it is worth it. But again, maybe it is just because of this specific situation with the three consoles. Maybe their fees are not as high as the fees from Google and Apple. I don't know. But it could be very cool to see the Epic Games Store on these three big platforms. Now, with the Switch, as well as PlayStation, I don't know if they would be as open to it as, say, Xbox would. Obviously, Xbox has really taken a huge multi-platform approach, and actually just about a month ago, there were rumors that basically Xbox was already working on something in regard to the Steam store being on Xbox. That would not surprise me in the slightest, but as for PlayStation and Nintendo, I don't really know if they would be as receptive of it. But the good news from all of this is that Tim Sweeney does want to put the Epic Games Store on the three big consoles, and I suppose it is also good news that he does not want to sue over this. So no, we are probably not going to see a big lawsuit coming out anytime soon, Epic Games versus Xbox or something like that. But at least with Xbox's situation, I would not be surprised if maybe even by by the end of this year, we could see big third-party stores like Steam and the Epic Games Store on the platform.